Welcome back. Now, this week, a controversial German website launched, calling on the public to identify neo-Nazis at rallies. But the artists behind the site have revealed that there's much more to it than they let on. Alex and the team in the Cube have more on this. Alex?
Well, Tessa, do you remember these scenes? Chemnitz, the town in Germany. Fair to say, I think a lot of people across Europe perhaps weren't that aware of until these demonstrations took place. Angry protesters, angry at government immigration policy. But in amongst these crowds, where it is fair to say, of course, there were ordinary people too with genuine grievances, there were elements of the far right and the extreme right, neo-Nazis. We saw in the Cube, we proved that there were members there holding up fake information and doing the Nazi salute as well. This shocked Germany and really kicked off this discussion about how to tackle the rise of extremism in the country. Well, one group thought they had an idea. This website, which has now been taken down, was presented. What it allows you to do is to name and shame people you might recognize. In fact, the website offered a cash reward for naming and shaming your colleagues, acquaintances, or anyone you might recognize in photos uploaded on the website. Now, this is all something called doxing. It is where you use the internet to obtain somebody's identity and then publicly broadcast it. In this context, you can see just how political that was. The idea is to unmask these neo-Nazis. But that wasn't really what was going on here at all. There was a twist. Let me show you. The group later revealed that actually it was a honeypot. Now, by that, we mean there was a feature on the site, a search feature, where by inputting your name, your details were taken. What they in fact were trying to do, Tessa, was not encourage people to name and shame the neo-Nazis on the far right. They wanted the far right to come online and unmask themselves by searching to see if they were on the site. By entering their name, their details were seized and grabbed. That is called a honeypot. You can see it's the honey, they trap them. Now, that is very controversial. It's really kicked off a discussion in Germany about what this means for individuals' data privacy and their rights. But I spoke in an interview to Philip from the group, who call themselves the Beautiful Artists. Interestingly, that site was eventually taken down. And he said, we operate in an area of moral ambiguity, he says. But this data collection, he said, well, this was certainly right to do because the German state is not doing it. Their argument being, people need to do more to unmask and tackle the problem of the far right. But then there are others on social media, just finishing on what Paul Joseph's saying here. He said it's almost Stasi style, what they were trying to do. So, Tessa, the website has been taken down, but the idea here was to try and unmask and tackle far-right extremism in Germany. Now, you can see just how complicated even efforts to deal with it can get.
All right, thank you for that, Alex and the Cube team. And joining me in the studio to talk about this neo-Nazi honeypot scheme is Bernd Kohlmel, an independent German MEP sitting with the ECR group. And still with me is Nina Schick of Rasmussen Global and David Hirschenhorn of Politico. All right, I'd like to talk to you, Bernd, because, you know, the intention here was to tackle extremism. That was the intention. You're a former policeman. Is there anything about this that raises red flags for you?
Yes, absolutely. For me, it is unacceptable what this organization did. These are Stasi methods, and I think this will polarize the whole society. It is a task for the state, especially for the police, to look if there are riots, if there are persons who did a crime, then the police have to do the job, but not others. And please think if another organization would do the same with the left wing, the far left wing, then we would have a scandal in Germany. So I think we are not balanced in this situation. I say this is unacceptable and the state must act against this because this organization, they collected data. And this is far away from a transparent system. Nobody knows what they will do with this data. That could be that really normal citizens are now in a database of this organization.
Yeah, the argument of the artist was that the government, the state, doesn't seem to be doing enough to tackle, you know, the rise of extremism.
This argument comes from people who are going for demonstrations wrapped. They want that the policeman shows a clear name on his jacket and say self. They are wrapped. This is unacceptable.
And the big issue also is invasion of privacy, you were saying. I mean, which of these, what part of it that bothers you, Nina, if anything?
First of all, the practice of doxing, which has already happened in multiple cases, is very dangerous because it has ruined people's lives, you know, when they're named and shamed on the internet for things they didn't do. So I think you have to be very careful. The second thing is that something like this has become highly, highly politicized. And I understand in the context of Germany, given our recent history, why this is so emotional. But if the aim of doing this is to expose neo-Nazis and thereby name and shame them and, you know, suppress the far-right or neo-Nazi beliefs, it will have exactly the opposite effect, because you can imagine how people on the far right will argue that, you know, this is hampering on their free speech, that it's outrageous.
Exactly.
So I think it's extremely divisive tactics, which is better actually left in the hands of the security services who have a job to track people who are dangerous and not kind of allow this kind of mob mentality to take over a vigilante, very emotional, visceral debate.
I mean, just putting a bit of context, I mean, David, you're saying that this should be in the hands of authorities, but we do have, we know that 467 violent neo-Nazis are still at large despite active arrest warrants. So there's the context.
There's a strong message here, right, for the German government, and that is that there is a demand for more to be done. I mean, the other question becomes, what about the complexities in these data protection laws? We know Germany has some of the strongest laws against hate speech, maybe to its credit, but also some of the strongest data protection laws that then present a problem if those data privacy rights are used in order to go about hate speech, hate crimes, you know. It's hard to imagine that I should feel sorry for someone who feels their privacy rights have been violated when they're out on the street in public making a Nazi salute. As a journalist, I would much rather have a free flow of information on all counts. Yes, it has to be used responsibly. Yes, the state should be doing its job. Yes, vigilante justice has its limitations. But you've got a problem when it somehow is okay, you're entitled to the privacy of going out on the street and engaging in hate speech in a country where it's illegal.
And I think that's quite right, because often, you know, activists on the far right say, this is my right to have free speech. And there has to be a very strong distinction between free speech and inciting hatred. And I think it's correct that people who are inciting hatred or spewing ridiculous racist nonsense are held to account for those actions.
And very quickly, I'll give you the last word. Go ahead, Bert.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. But again, this must be balanced in the state. Balanced from the far right, also to the far left. And then the state must have the power to do the job.
I think the point you're making is that we should, when we talk about extremism, we talk about both types of extremism.
Absolutely.
Okay.